China's worsening economic slowdown is rippling across the globe. Wegovy helps reduce heart failure symptoms in obese people. Russia hopes to raise fish and seafood exports to China after Japan ban. China won't require COVID-19 tests for incoming travelers. France to ban Muslim Abaya dress in state schools. Austrian town protests against mass tourism. Japan suspends launch of rocket-carrying moon lander because of winds. Spanish kiss scandal sparks legal probe.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Tuesday, August 29th, and here are your top stories. Bloomberg reported China's dramatic economic slowdown in recent months is sounding alarm bells across the world. Global investors have already pulled more than $10 billion from China's stock markets. Africa and Asia have been the hardest hit, with the value of imports down more than 14% in the first 7 months this year. Part of that is due to a drop in demand for electronics parts from South Korea and Taiwan, while falling prices of commodities such as fossil fuels are also hitting the value of goods shipped to China.
The value of Chinese imports has fallen for 9 of the last 10 months as demand retreats from the record highs set during the pandemic. The value of shipments from Africa, Asia and North America were all lower in July than they were a year ago. Bloomberg said a prolonged slowdown in China will hurt the rest of the world. An analysis from the International Monetary Fund shows how much is at stake. When China's growth rate rises by 1 percentage point, global expansion is boosted by about 0.3 percentage points.
According to a late-stage clinical trial released last Friday, the popular weight loss drug Wegovy from Novo Nordisk significantly reduced symptoms of a common type of heart failure in patients with obesity. The trial found Wegovy helped alleviate symptoms like shortness of breath, fatigue, swelling in the legs, and irregular heartbeat. It also resulted in lower blood pressure and reductions in inflammation. The results add to Wegovy's growing list of potential health benefits beyond shedding unwanted pounds.
The results also complement the groundbreaking trial data Novo Nordisk released earlier this month, which found that Wegovy slashed the risk of serious heart-related problems by 20%. Wegovy also led to improvements in physical limitations. Patients who took the drug were able to walk further in 6 minutes than those in the placebo group. Those on Wegovy also lost about 13% of their body weight, compared with 2.6% for those on a placebo, over the course of the year-long trial.
Roskosnadzor, the Russian food safety watchdog, said in a statement late on Friday that it was seeking to increase its marine product exports to China in the wake of China's ban on Japanese seafood imports after the release of treated radioactive water from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea. It said in July that Russia is one of the biggest marine product suppliers to China, with 894 Russian companies allowed to export seafood. It is seeking to increase the number of exporters.
To aid that effort, Roskosnadzor plans to continue dialogue with China on seafood safety issues and finish negotiations with China on regulations for Russian marine products supplied to the country. Roskosnadzor said, the Chinese market in general is promising for Russian fish products. We hope to increase the number of certified Russian companies and ships, the volume of products and its range. Roskosnadzor said it has tightened the screening of Japan's seafood imports, though the volumes are insignificant.
China will no longer require a negative COVID-19 test result for incoming travelers starting Wednesday, after a 3-year isolation that began with the country's borders closing in March 2020. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Weibing announced the change on Monday. In January, China ended quarantine requirements for its own citizens traveling from abroad, and over the past few months has gradually expanded the list of countries that Chinese people can travel to and increased the number of international flights.
自2023年8月30日起，来华人员无需进行入境前新冠病毒核酸或抗原检测。
Beijing ended its tough domestic zero COVID policy in December. In years of its draconian curbs, incoming travelers were required to isolate for weeks at government-designated hotels. Residents were in some cases forcibly locked into their homes in attempts to stop the virus from spreading. In early December, authorities abruptly scrapped most COVID controls, ushering in a wave of infections that overwhelmed hospitals and morgues. Since lifting the COVID curbs, China has been contending with a sluggish economic recovery.
France's education minister said on Sunday, ahead of the back-to-school season, that France will ban children from wearing the abaya, the full-length robes worn by some Muslim women in state-run schools. France has enforced a strict ban on religious signs in state schools since 19th century laws removed any traditional Catholic influence from public education. In 2004, it banned headscarves in schools. And now the education minister said, I have decided that the abaya could no longer be worn in schools.
France passed a ban on full-face veils in public in 2010, angering some in its 5 million-strong Muslim community. Defending secularism is a rallying cry in France that resonates across the political spectrum, from left-wingers upholding the liberal values of the Enlightenment to far-right voters seeking a bulwark against the growing role of Islam in French society. France Education Minister Gabriel Attal said in an interview with TV channel TF1 last Sunday he will ban abaya in state-run schools.
Locals in the Austrian town of Hallstatt have taken part in a protest against mass tourism. Hallstatt, which is a World Heritage Site, has just over 700 inhabitants, but gets up to as many as 10,000 visitors a day during high season. Residents are calling for limits on the number of daily tourists and for a ban on tour buses after 5 o'clock local time. While tourism has been good for Hallstatt's economy, some locals say there are simply too many visitors. Hallstatt received about 1 million visitors a year before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hallstatt, with its picturesque old houses on the shores of a pristine alpine lake surrounded by craggy mountains, has become a tourism hotspot in recent years. In 2006, it featured in a South Korean romantic drama, boosting its popularity in Asia, with a replica of the town being built in China 6 years later. As one of Europe's most over-touristed destinations, some locals say there are simply too many visitors. The mayor of the town said he wanted to reduce the number of buses that pass through Hallstatt by a third.
Japan's space agency suspended a planned launch on Monday of an H-2A rocket that was to carry a moonlander into space, according to operator Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in a post on a social media site X. The launch was cancelled because of unsuitable wind conditions in the upper atmosphere 24 minutes before the planned launch time. The H-2A number 47 rocket was to be launched from Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's Tengan-no-shima Space Center in southern Japan at 9:26 a.m. local time on Monday.
The rocket was carrying JAXA's Smart Lander for investigating Moon, SLIM, which would be the first Japanese spacecraft to land on the Moon. Tokyo-based startup iSpace's lunar lander Hakuto R Mission 1 failed in April. JAXA was planning to start SLIM's moon landing in January to February 2024 after Monday's launch, aiming to follow the success of India's Chandrayaan-3 lunar exploration mission this month. The rocket was also carrying an X-ray imaging and spectroscopy mission, XRISM, satellite.
Spanish Football Federation chief Luis Rubielles was dragged deeper into scandal as prosecutors opened a probe, and his mother locked herself in a church and went on a hunger strike in his defense. Rubielles is at the center of a widening controversy after he held Jennifer Hermoso's head in his hands and kissed her on the lips as she and other players received medals for winning the World Cup. The twists and turns have overshadowed the victory in the tournament in Australia and shone a light on gender inequality in the country.
The prosecutor's office of Spain's National High Court agreed to launch an inquiry after criminal complaints were filed by third parties. Officials will also contact Hermoso as a possible victim of sexual aggression and offer her the chance to testify. The saga took a bizarre turn when Rubiales' mother locked herself in a church in the family's hometown of Motril in the southern region of Andalusia. She said she will go on hunger strike until Hermoso retracts her statement that the kiss wasn't consensual.
Now let's delve into the news of Wegovy helping to reduce heart failure symptoms in obese people. Number 1, obesity, 过度肥胖. Obesity can increase the risk of heart disease. Number 2, swell, 膨胀,肿胀. Her arm was beginning to swell up where the beat had stunned her. Number 3, fatigue. 疲劳,劳累. Driver fatigue was to blame for the accident. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section below. The correct answer will be answered tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.